If you wanted something done in your family, did you have to be the one to handle it because you were carrying too much of the load and needed your ex-husband to step up and start carrying his fair share? While his actions may have been deserving of the criticisms that you threw at him, how you delivered those messages may have really contributed to the ultimate demise of a relationship that was already struggling. Today, we're talking about criticism and how it probably played a key role in your divorce. But I'm not just going to leave you hanging. I'm going to talk to you about what criticism is, and I'm also going to teach you how to effectively communicate your messages and complaints in a way that is constructive in a relationship. We've all experienced the frustration of feeling misunderstood. You try to deliver the message 100 different ways, hoping that one of them will land, until you finally give up in frustration. In this series, we're talking about some of the biggest pitfalls or red flags that occur in communication. They're called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and come from John Gottman's work. These are things that when they are present in a relationship and when they become the pattern in a relationship, almost certainly across time will determine or spell the doom of the relationship. In this video, we're talking about the very first one of these, which is criticism. When communicating, the very first thing that you have to do is to understand what it is your job to do with where you are in that process right now. If you think about this, this is my message that I want to get to you, and I've got the container, maybe I've got the lid, and I've got the liquid inside of it. When I'm the communicator, it is my job to get all of this message to you. When it comes to communications and healthy relationships in general, it is first my job, and always principally my job, to get my needs met. It's not your job to read my mind. It is first my job to communicate effectively so that I can give you the chance to receive my message. What we all want is to feel understood. It is first my job to do everything in my power to give you the opportunity to understand what it is that I'm trying to share with you. As we get into this first predictor of divorce and this red flag that was almost certainly present in your previous relationship, you might be interested to know that women are twice as likely to utilize or engage in this first predictor of divorce than men are. And if that made you feel a little defensive as a woman, then watch my next video on defensiveness, because we explore that. And men tend to do that a little bit more than women do. So first off, let's define what criticism is. If I have a message that I want to communicate to you, and it's my job to deliver the message as effectively as I can to increase the likelihood of you understanding what I'm trying to say, there are 3 things that make the delivery of a message a criticism instead of a well-thrown ball. And those 3 things are always and never, adding blame, and labeling or name-calling. So always and never. You never listen to what I have to say. You never want to have sex with me. You always criticize me you always criticize everything that I do. You ask me to do something, I do it, and it's never good enough. Always and never. So your brain immediately goes to the exceptions of that. So even if it's been 5 years since you listened to me, your brain is going to go to that exception. You never buy me flowers. If I say that, your brain is going to go to that time in 2001 when you bought me flowers. And so when we use always and never, the brain of the other person automatically goes into this defensive mode of looking for exceptions to that. The second one of adding blame is like, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be in this mess. When we add blame and we send the message that it's your fault, that whatever the situation is what it is, your brain immediately has a hard time catching that pass. Then this last one of name calling or labeling is such a destructive, a very poor pass. And so that is, you are thoughtless, you are mean, you are whatever. We could get more aggressive with those, but it's anytime we're name calling or labeling the person. Those are the 3 things that make the delivery of any message a criticism. I've seen lots of couples across the years who actually will fight about whether or not somebody's being critical. And so one of the effective things about knowing what actually makes something a criticism is being able to know whether or not maybe you're just being too defensive or the other person actually is being critical. are overly critical. So a couple of minutes ago, I shared that the research shows that women are twice as likely to criticize as men are. Why might that be the case? There are probably several reasons why that might be the case, but you might be interested to know a couple of them. One is that the corpus callosum, you know what the corpus callosum is? The corpus callosum is a little sheath, little pathway that carries information back and forth between the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And the corpus callosum of the average female is 30% larger than the corpus callosum of the average male. The average female brain has billions more neurons than the average male brain. And the average female brain is about 11% smaller than the average male brain. So you put all that together and what do you have? You have in a female brain, a female head, much more going on in a smaller space. And that may be one of the reasons why women are more prone to criticize. There are probably some good reasons why research has shown that women tend to criticize a little bit more than men. The other thing that is a piece of this, or maybe a piece of this, is that women tend to be more verbal than men. The average American has over 60,000 automatic thoughts every day, which means that the average female probably has 80, and the average male probably has 40. And again, temperament comes into play, individual differences come into play. Women have much more going on and tend to be much more verbal than the average man. And so just the fact that they're talking more may account for the fact that there's more, percentage-wise, more criticizing going on. And so if you're throwing bad passes, if you're throwing fastballs at people's heads, or you're high, and you make it much less likely for the other person to be able to receive your message. On the contrary, if you deliver your message effectively, then you're making it really easy for the other person to catch the message. Now, they can still refuse to, right? They can bat it out of the air, or they can say, no, I'm not going to do this, or they can stare at their phone, or they can stare at the TV, but it's your job to do everything in your power to make it a very catchable pass. Now let's talk about what the remedy is. How do you present a good message? The first thing that I want you to keep in mind and to remember is that communication is a skill. And so how do you get good at something? You first have to learn what healthy is. You have to learn what it is to do whatever that is effectively. You have to learn how to do it. And then you have to practice doing it. And neurons that fire together wire together. And as you practice doing something over and over and over and over again, then you get good at it. When you are the communicator, there are 4 steps to doing everything in your power to get your message from you to the other person. And that is BFWC. That's the acronym I want you to remember. BFWC. So the B stands for behavior. What is the behavior that you're talking about? The F stands for feelings. How do you feel about that? The W stands for why. Why do you feel that way? And the C stands for care. And so let me show you how that works. So let's say that I don't feel like I get enough time with you. Then I might say, hey, first off, I need to make sure that it's a good time to talk to you, right? Because just because I have something to say doesn't mean that you have the resources or you're in a place to be able to receive the message. So first I need to say, hey, there's something that I'd like to share with you. When would be a good time? And then you need to stop and think, okay, do I have the time? Do I have the resources? Because you need to make yourself available for me in order for me to be able to deliver a pass to you. So then you say, yeah, let's talk. I don't know, the last few weeks, it feels like when I'm trying to talk to you, it feels like you've been really easily distracted by the kids, or you're on your phone, even you're doing the dishes, all things that are super important. But it seems like when I'm trying to talk to you, your attention is elsewhere. And it's making me feel unimportant. It's making me feel sad and a little isolated, a little shunted to the side, because it seems like you're not very interested in spending time with me. So did you hear the B, the F, and the W? The behavior is when I'm trying to talk to you, you're distracted by other things. The feeling is sad, kind of isolated, a little frustrated because I don't seem to be able to get time with you. And the reason why is because I'm interpreting that behavior as you not wanting to spend time with me. And then the C, which is the icing on the cake, this is the attachment piece. The C is very clearly communicating that this is about an issue and not about you, your mattering, your worth, the state of our relationship. And so it's just, hey, the care piece of this is, and I want you to know that this is not, I'm not saying anything about our relationship. This is just an issue that I'd like to work through because I want to be close to you. And so I'm doing this because you and our relationship matter to me. Unless you live in complete isolation from everybody else, which very few of us do, you are constantly constantly sending messages to the people around you. As you practice and get good at that, there are two really important and powerful things that happen. First is you dramatically increase the sense of control that you feel and have. So often we feel powerless and we feel at the mercy of other people to make room for us, to care about what we have to say, to listen to what we have to say. And that's true. The other person has to respond. But as I learn how to throw good passes and I learn how to communicate well, I dramatically increase the likelihood of you understanding what I'm trying to communicate to you and even being able to care about it, because you'll know what I'm saying as I get better at it. So it dramatically increases the sense of control that you have in your ability to get your needs healthfully and effectively met with other people. The second thing that you can count on is that it will become much more enjoyable to communicate with you. But when we're communicating with somebody that's critical, it's so much harder to catch those passes. It's so much harder to non-defensively sit and listen to what you have to say when you're like, you never do this, and you always do this. And if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be in this mess. If it weren't for you, we'd have more friends. Man, it takes Jerry Rice level skills to be able to catch those kinds of messages. So just to sum up here, the first is to understand that it is first your responsibility to get your needs met. You've got to learn how to communicate effectively, how to get your message into the hands of the other person as effectively as possible. The key to avoid there is to make sure that you're not being critical when you're trying to communicate a message, meaning that you avoid always and never, you avoid adding blame, and you avoid name calling or labeling. And instead of those things, you make sure that you BFWC, that you communicate the behavior, you communicate how you feel, you communicate why you're feeling that way, and you communicate that you care about the other person and that what you're talking about is an issue and not their worth with you or their safety with you. And this is the first red flag that I can almost guarantee was present in the relationship that failed. And I want you to know, because you probably felt all the frustration of not being able to communicate well, but you may not have known how to break that down and how to recognize what healthy is. And if you just think, oh, well, that was just about that relationship and I just got to go find somebody else and it will all be okay. The hardest part is over. I got out of that relationship. Well, no, that was a very hard part. But now you've got to get healthy and you've got to learn what your part was in the breakdown of those things. And as you learn what it takes to be healthy, to begin to thrive in your life personally, then you can make much better choices. If not, I guarantee, unless you hit the lottery and you just happen to be lucky, you'll find the exact same patterns that existed in the relationship that you were just in your next relationship. Take this time to look in the mirror. Take this time to break down and dissect what wasn't working and why it wasn't working and what you need to do in order to get it to work. The next red flag that we're going to talk about, the next horseman of the apocalypse, is defensiveness. And defensiveness is all about what it is your job to do when you're the receiver and how to do that effectively.